What's up guys, Tech Titanium here with another video, and we're going to continue the topic on what to do after you've built your first PC. And if you don't want to download any software to debloat Windows for you or create any system setting changes, then this video is for you. So go ahead and go to search and look for Restore. Select Create a Restore Point. Click on Create. Give this any name you want. And once this is finished, you're going to have a point in time that you can revert back to if you want to restore the default settings. In this video, we're not going to be modifying the system registry files. This is strictly just settings within Windows itself. So go ahead and go to Start, Settings, Display. And here you can see I have two tiles. This means I have two monitors plugged into my computer. And what you're going to want to do before anything else is make sure that you've connected your monitors to your graphics card and not your motherboard's panel. We want to fully utilize the system and optimize it as best as we can, and we're going to do this through the GPU. We don't want anything being done through the integrated graphics of your processor if it supports that. So under display resolution, make sure you select the recommended preset. In this case, this is a 1440p monitor. And to change your secondary or third monitor, simply click on the tile and do the same thing. Once you're done with those, hit Advanced Display, and you're going to set the highest refresh rate that your monitors support. Now, if you have a monitor like mine and it's a 240Hz refresh rate, but you don't see this here, I guarantee your problem is that you're using an HDMI cord and not a display port. So go ahead and change that over if you don't see 240 here, because some monitors will do, let's say, a refresh rate of 165 tops on HDMI. So to see 240 and actually utilize that, use a DisplayPort cable. So going back to system, as you guys can see, just on this page alone, there's a lot of settings. And if I was to do a video on every single one of these, it would just simply be way too long. So I'm going to mention the things that I think are most relevant. So go ahead and go to multitasking. And this is the features of Windows that I don't use. So if I pull this to the top, I can snap this to an orientation tile. And because I don't want that, I'm going to go ahead and turn these off. Go over to personalization, start. This is more of a personal preference. I just don't want to see recommended apps or anything I've downloaded or installed or used. So same thing, turn these off. Navigate to taskbar. And because I don't have a touch keyboard or use a pen or even use widgets, I'm going to turn these off as well. And under taskbar behaviors, this is where you're going to find hide the taskbar if this is what you like. And of course, if you want to move the taskbar icons to the left, like Windows 10, this is where you do it. Over to accessibility, go to visual effects and turn these off. This will give us a much smoother, snappier feeling OS. And of course, if you do like some of these features, you can keep them on, as they're not going to make a drastic difference when it comes to gaming. Going over to privacy and security, diagnostics and feedback, we're going to turn all this off because we don't want our system sending out information or storing information on the system itself. So go ahead and delete diagnostic data. And just so that Windows doesn't bother you, set this to never. Back to apps, we're going to go click on startup. And as you can see here, this is all the applications that start with Windows when I boot my PC. So I'm going to turn these off just to give us a bit of a quicker boot up time. And lastly, under system, go ahead to storage. And we're going to go ahead, if it isn't on already, turn on storage sense, because this is going to clean up files on our computer that we're not using automatically for us. And this is a good thing, because if you let these things build up, it's just going to slow your PC down, and we don't want that. So you can set this to every day, every week, or every month. So choose what you think you'd like to use. Go to gaming, game mode, and make sure this is on, followed by graphics. Change default graphics settings and turn these on as well. Now, because every system is different, you're going to have to play with these and see what works for you. On my computer personally, I don't see a drastic difference, very minimal, if anything, with game mode on and the hardware accelerated GPU scheduling. So just play with these. If you have a lower end system, it might help you out, but in my case, it doesn't. But I just leave them on anyway because it doesn't hurt anything. Okay, guys, so now that we have those settings done, we're going to go ahead and search for our mouse settings. Click on additional mouse settings. Navigate to the pointer options tab and make sure that you deselect enhanced pointer precision because we don't want Windows having any more input over the mouse than it already has to. So hit apply and then just hit OK. And the reason for this is I'm just going to go ahead and open up my mouse program. And in my case, I'm using G-Hub for the Logitech G502 Hero. And here you're going to find the DPI or sensitivity, which is what it really is for your mouse. We want to be as accurate and consistent as possible, especially when it comes to competitive FPS shooters. Now, I have a base DPI of 800. Now, I'm not going to recommend any numbers to you guys. You're going to have to play with this and see what you're most comfortable with because this can vary from the type of monitor you're using, the mouse you're using, and of course, the type of games you play. And just for an example, when I play FPS, this is my base DPI, and my in-game sensitivity tends to be around 4 to about 5.6. So this is all just personal preference, and that's really comes down to just fine-tuning these things. So once you find a base DPI that you absolutely enjoy, where the mouse is easy to control, it's not too fast, not too slow, that is the point where you transition to the in-game settings and start playing with the sensitivity there. And of course, the report rate, or otherwise known as polling, you're going to want to set this to the highest that your mouse is capable of. So in my case, it's 1000. So that's what I have it set to. And the good thing about this software is I can turn on onboard memory. So once I have all my DPIs set, I can save it to the profile. I can name it here. And once I exit this, the application doesn't have to run in the background, which is a good thing because when we're gaming, we want as little as possible to be running. Next up, we're going to go ahead and open Nvidia control panel. And of course, this applies if you're utilizing an Nvidia graphics card. So go to Configure Surround PhysX and under Processor, select your graphics card because as I mentioned earlier, we want the graphics card doing all the work and we want it to default to that every single time. Under Change Resolution, because we've set this in the Windows settings, this should automatically detect the refresh rate. But go ahead and enable NVIDIA color settings, set the output dynamic range to full, because this is going to help us out in dark and light areas, just to add a bit more detail. And hit apply. And you can see this is an 8-bit color profile at 240 Hertz, but if I drop down to 144 Hertz, now we have 10-bit and 12-bit. And basically what this does is it increases the color range or depth. And when it comes to gaming, I'd rather have 240 Hertz for maximum performance. But if you're doing things like video editing or graphic design work, and your monitor supports the color bit profile and you see the change in the colors, it'll probably be better for you in terms of color accuracy. So you can actually drop down to that and select this profile if that's the stuff that you're into. But for gaming purposes, we're going to go back to 8-bit and 240 Hertz. And you're going to go ahead and do this to your other monitor as well. Adjust desktop color settings. This is the section that's going to control what you're seeing while you're gaming. And the type of monitor I have, I don't need to adjust these because I'm going to assume that you've already checked the settings on the back of your monitor by navigating the overlaid display. If you're still unhappy with the colors, you can come and tweak these here, even the brightness or contrast, but specifically digital vibrance is what you're going to want to tweak. And I would do this in 5% increments because if you drag this too high, it's not going to look good. So I would start at 50% like the default, because if I go to this picture here and I crank this to 94%, the skin tone is way too orange. But if I come down to right about 70% on my monitor, it still looks okay. So this will give me a little bit more life to my colors while I'm gaming. So if that's what you need, this is where you'll do that tweak. But I'm going to go ahead and just set this back to default. And you can do this to your secondary or third monitor as well. Rotate display. If you guys are running a vertically mounted monitor, this is where you change the orientation. So you're going to want to select portrait or portrait flip depending on what side you have it on. But if you're not, you can just leave this at default. Adjust desktop size and position. You're going to want to set this to no scaling. And if you are, you're going to want it to be done on the GPU, and you can click override the scaling mode set by games and programs, so that way it never does any scaling. And you can do this to your secondary monitor as well. Set up G-Sync. Of course, if you have a G-Sync or G-Sync compatible monitor, you can have this at enable for full screen or both windowed and full screen mode. Set up multiple displays. This doesn't really do much. It just tells us what the primary display is, and you can select the orientation depending on how many monitors you have. Adjust video color settings. So you can go ahead and select with Nvidia settings if you want it to have a specific color. You're going to set the dynamic range to full. And I'm going to do this on both monitors. Because just like before, if you're not satisfied with the color output, you can tweak these as well when you guys are watching videos. And the same thing with the image settings. And that is pretty much it in terms of the basics for Nvidia Control Panel. Alright guys, here's the last bit of the video. And I'm going to talk about two things, the start menu and the applications that come pre-installed with Windows. And as you can see, my desktop is very clean, no icons on the background, the taskbar is all cleaned up, and I got no more widgets. So I'm going to go ahead and hit start. And as you can tell, mine looks totally different than yours, which is fine. I've tuned this for efficiency. So everything that I use on a day-to-day basis is put right here in front of me. I don't have to go looking for them or going to the all apps to open it up. I can just come here and simply just click on one and I'm right there. Now you can do this by right clicking on whatever you want here, pinning it to the start, and you can rearrange these by dragging or holding and then dragging them into place. And if we go over to all apps, everything pre-installed with Windows is right here. And of course, everything you install will also be in here. And I'll touch very briefly on this. Something as simple as the weather app, I've uninstalled that. So it's no longer a widget. And it's also not running in the background anymore. And I've also gone into system settings and disabled location services because we're aiming for top performance out of our system. And that's what we're optimizing here. So if we can lighten the CPU processes in the background or overall, it's going to benefit us. And that's the whole purpose of this video. So if we can simply do this with one thing at a time, just go ahead and take your time and delete the things that you don't need and disable the corresponding settings if applicable to maximize the performance of your computer. So I hope you like this video, guys. Please leave a comment, drop a like, subscribe if you like. I hope this video helped you guys out. Have a good one.